25-30, 35-40, 45-50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going running all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. No, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Well, week 6, I'm calling it Subterfuge Saturday, fellas. We've got a bunch of storylines all over the country. We start at Kyle Field, where the Aggies host Missouri in a big-time swing game in the SEC. We'll break down which defense we think can come out on top in Aggieland. Iowa is on the road at number 3, Ohio State. Can the Hawkeyes do anything through the air against Jim Knowles' defense? We'll discuss. And Rutgers heading to the Corn State to take on Nebraska. The Cornhuskers, 7-point favorites in that one. I'll tell the nation to keep sleeping on Rutgers. I can't wait to dive into my Scarlet Knights in just a little bit. Saturday storylines and the Turbo offense all coming at you here in another edition of the Three Technique, a college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. Wherever you are, thanks for hanging out with us. Like, subscribe the channel, follow us on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast content. We're glad to hang out with you, talk some ball here in week 6. And Trey, again, it feels like some people may be doubting the weekend slate. Your header, I think, says it all. How often do we have to tell the people that weeks that don't have a bunch of matchups with little arbitrary numbers next to team names, they're still really good football weeks too?
Yeah, we talk all the time about teams getting in look-ahead spots, right? I feel like college football fans in general are in a look-ahead spot. October 12th is going to be an absolute banger if you love the little numbers next to the names and the big brand programs. But it seems like every time we have a week just like this, that there's craziness that happens. Who was predicting Kentucky to upset Ole Miss last week? Not a lot of people. And there's a lot of opportunities for good teams going on the road or putting themselves in a difficult spot or having a conference game where they're looking ahead to another conference game next week. We got to not look past this week to October 12th. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff to talk about come Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. I talked with an Alabama fan this week who was just pumped up, so excited after that win over Georgia. I said, now, do you know when the last time you lost to Vanderbilt was? That was the mid-'80s, my friend. Are you ready to break a streak on Saturday? And he gave me the don't you dare put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Ready for Diego Pavia.
That's right. I think there are some delightful games all over the place. Garrett, let's start with our 3 Tech Big 3 presented by HomefieldApparel.com. The Good brand is cooking up all kinds of great things. They have pullovers that are getting ready to drop. I think that's official. I don't think I'm breaking an embargo there. If I am, apologies to our friends over at the Good brand. But 3 Tech Pod gets you 15% off a pullover, maybe not a pullover if that's not released yet, whatever your fancy might be. Texas A&M, number 25 team in the country. Allegedly, maybe they're 25B, sharing that spot with UNLV, according to the AP voters. They host number 9, Missouri, coming to town. The Aggies, as of recording, 2-point favorites. This is the 11 a.m. game on ABC, a sneaky good SEC schedule on ABC on Saturday. Missouri's off a bye week. Texas A&M is off of the Tums Classic against Arkansas, in which we get heartburn every single year. I'm not sad to be leaving the Death Star. Missouri, I feel like, should be the favorite in that. They are a top 10 team, and they certainly seem to be a little bit more put together, a little bit further down the program road than Texas A&M is. What say you?
Yeah, it's still year 1 for Mike Elko, so obviously things are getting started, and really week to week, I feel like the Aggies have looked better and better against, granted, bad competition, and so we don't always see the results of that on the field, but you're starting to see things come together for the Aggies. You saw the defensive front come together against Arkansas, finally get in the backfield. Nick Scorton having a heck of a day as well. And when you look at this defense and you look at the progression of this defense, it seems like they've had problems and then slowly been fixing them. And one of the matchups that I've seen a lot of people talk about for this Missouri A&M game is going to be that big play over the top type of thing. Not only has Missouri kind of had some struggles early with some of this, Brady Cook hasn't really come out as strong as he was last season. I think this is also going to be the next thing that A&M tries to fix. Early in the year, it was kind of the run game, and we talked about how they didn't really perform well in the run game against teams like Notre Dame, and even in that second game as well. Then they kind of got it figured out against Florida, kind of shored some of that up against the Gators, and it's been better since then. I think this big play, kind of over the top secondary, is that next shoe to drop for the Aggie defense. Especially because, they've gotten burned by it for a couple weeks in a row. So if that's not their number one focus in practice, I don't know what the heck else is. Yeah, Mizzou's coming off of a bye week. They've had some issues with the running quarterback so far. For me, I'm going to have to see them actually defend the running quarterback before I'm going to believe that they're going to have any real success against Marcel Reed. Yeah, the formula's been there for other teams, but Castellanos and Pavia both kind of gave him issues being able to run and make stuff happen with their feet. Marcel Reed needs to take that next step in the pass game, but if he can, and we've been waiting for him to kind of take that step, we've been waiting for him to take that step against, teams like, Bowling Green, and then we asked for it against a team like Arkansas. Now, again, Aggie fans asking for it against a team in Missouri where he needs to take that step forward. I think the friendly confines of Kyle Field should help him. And I think that this will end up going A&M's way. I am picking the Aggies to win this one and cover the -2. I think it'll be a low-scoring, ugly game, but I do think that defense is going to give Missouri a lot of problems and kind of force things to kind of clamp down, get ugly, and play a little bit of a running time of possession style game.
Rock fight is certainly the format that suits Texas A&M so far this season. Trey, you've got questions on both sides of the ball in this matchup. For Marcel Reed, big plays have been an issue. In fact, I sent you guys a tweet earlier this week from Carter Carroll's on Twitter. Texas A&M quarterback Marcel Reed is now 3 of 17 on passes beyond 20-plus yards from the line of scrimmage per PFF. He went 0 of 5 on those throws versus Arkansas. He's also 3 of 15 this season on passes when throwing outside the numbers beyond 10-plus yards from the line of scrimmage. So the Aggies, if they're going to get a chunk play, it's necessitated a broken tackle, like we saw with the passing touchdown to Noah Thomas this past week, a big run, something like that where the defense has more of a lapse than the offense making a play. On the other side, though, Missouri's road resume hasn't exactly impressed you.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you guys on Marcel Reed. If he can hit those downfield passing plays, that unlocks another key to this Texas A&M offense that could make it really difficult to stop for pretty much everybody else on their schedule, because it's hard to stop a running quarterback that can also throw downfield. I've got to see that, so I believe it. I'm going to take Mizzou +2, but guys, I think this is a referendum game on the legitimacy of Mizzou's program under Eli Drinkwitz. I love Eli Drinkwitz as a person. I think he's a great coach. I think he is, a great person as well. I think his resume is built on a little bit of a house of cards at this point. It's really built on blowing out Tennessee at home last year in a situation where Tennessee was kind of out of playoff contention and done for the year, and Joe Milton wasn't the best fit for that offense. We can go on and on about Tennessee last year, and beating a depleted Ohio State team in the Cotton Bowl. Those are kind of the two things that you point at, and making bowl games when he wasn't necessarily supposed to. He was king of going 6-6 for a couple years at the beginning there. But I dove into his road resume especially. He's 6-12 on the road in his tenure. He has just 2 wins in his years as Mizzou's coach that came over teams that ended the season with a winning record. That was South Carolina in 22 and Kentucky last year. Average wins of the teams he's beaten on the road are 4.29. The average win percentage is 360. So a lot to be desired on the road. He also wins a lot of close games, 6-0 in one-score games in 2023 and 24 so far. All 6 of those came at home, or except for one that was at a neutral site in St. Louis against Memphis last year. So he's kind of got to prove it on the road. This is a big opportunity for him to prove and take another step forward as a program. If they fail, they could find themselves in a really sticky spot, because I think 10-2 on their resume with the schedule that they have might get left out in the cold come playoff time. I think there's going to be a lot of teams in that 10-2 range, and they could find themselves on the wrong side of the bubble if they lose this game to Texas A&M.
It's interesting. I think I think part of that has been maybe the growing pains that Missouri has gone through. I mean, this was a program that was down and out. We've talked a lot about, I mean, this was a historically bad defense just a couple of years ago. North Texas, I think, dethroned them as one of the worst defenses in modern college football history against the run last year. But just a couple of years ago, before Blake Baker kind of put his healing hands on that program, they couldn't stop anything. They were giving up a first down every single run. I think part of that is learning how to win. The other part of it that makes me nervous about picking A&M to win this is it's year one of Mike Elko. I think if this is year 2, year 3, he's built up the program the way he wants to build it. Kyle Field has become a fortress once again for the Aggies. I think one Mizzou beat writer was on the Cover 3 podcast today. I think he said that the Aggies are 26-22 against Power 4, Power 5 teams since joining the SEC. I could be butchering that stat, but guys, we were there through the Kevin Sumlin days. We know that Kyle Field was not a place that was impossible to win against some really bad Texas A&M teams, and that's unfortunate. On the other hand, though, the last time a quarterback poked the bear, that is Kyle Field. That was Josh Rosen, 2017?
2016.
2016. Said that it wasn't going to be loud, that practice was louder. Fans chanted 50,000 at him all game long. And, oh, by the way, right after Josh Rosen told the Aggie faithful, hey, get a little bit louder, he threw an interception that ended up sealing that game, right? So Brady Cook has made headlines by saying, yeah, practice is louder, it won't be a problem. We'll see how that goes for the Tigers on Saturday. My 3 questions in this game, and I am going to take Mizzou plus the 2 points. Can Texas A&M's secondary keep up with Missouri's wide receivers? We know that they have a plethora of wide receivers beyond just Luther Burden, who I think is going to be a problem. We'll see if Will Lee follows him or how Texas A&M decides to match up in the secondary. Can Brady Cook survive the A&M pass rush? Cook is not a mobile quarterback. He's not a Talon Green-esque who's able to roll away from pressure. And even though that didn't really help Talon Green this past week, it did allow him to buy some more time, get the ball away. And instead of having 6, 7, 8 sacks, I think the Aggies had 3 or 4, if I'm not mistaken. Brady Cook can't move like that. And so if this Missouri offensive line cannot keep the pocket clean, the Aggies might not only win this game, they might run away with it if Brady can't deliver that ball down the field. Finally, can Texas A&M hit 2 or 3 of those big plays? Because for Missouri, their offense isn't just predicated on the pass, it's on the ground as well. Nate Noel can take the air out of drives. He can gash you in big chunk plays. That's been a struggle for the Texas A&M defense at times this season. The Aggies are going to have to take that momentum offensively at some point. So far, their defense has been able to get that going for them in these first couple of games. The offense is going to have to make a big play, in my opinion, if they're going to hang in this one and win it. It's a very winnable game for Texas A&M. I truly think this is a pick'em style game. I think the line reflects that. Again, I'm going to go with Eli Drinkowitz and the team that's a couple more years developed down that line this time. I think if you play this game next year in Kyle Field, it might be a different story. It might be Texas taking Texas A&M. Let's go to the Horseshoe, where Iowa on the road at number 3, Ohio State. The Buckeyes are 21-point favorites as of recording, 2:30 p.m. on CBS. Guys, I think I'm going to take Iowa in this plus the 21. I don't know that I can draw you a map that I can show my work on how I'm going to get there, but it's the Iowa defense time and time again. Whenever I think I'm betting against them, it typically isn't very financially viable. I think if Caleb Johnson can give Iowa enough spark offensively, maybe get the Buckeye defenders out of the box and Cade McNamara can throw for, 75 yards. That shouldn't be that hard, right? Maybe Iowa can drag this into a 2-score game. They hang around with Ohio State late. I haven't exactly been super impressed with Will Howard from the little bit that we've seen. He's certainly done the job, but this will be the toughest defense that he's played by leaps and bounds this season.
Might be the toughest he plays all season. It has been lucrative to pick against Iowa when they play this caliber of team. I will say that historically. I went back, I saw your note and I went back and looked, and I don't have an exact stat, but typically you can count on Iowa to ugly up a game, not really counting on them to do that against a team the caliber of Ohio State. Now, it will be the best team Ohio State has played to this point, so there is some kind of advantage there for Iowa when looking for a cover. And Will Howard, I don't think ever saw a defense of this caliber in the Big 12 either. So it's going to be a step up in competition to him, to be sure. But I'm going to take Ohio State minus 21. They're at home. I think Iowa's going to be just a little bit too one-dimensional. Quality defensive coordinator like Jim Knowles is going to feast on that and create a lot of short fields for that offense in my mind. So even if Will Howard's not firing on all cylinders, Jeremiah Smith and the rest of those offensive skill players, I think they can score enough points to cover the spread, maybe on some short fields. But probably a slow burn, probably like 14-3, sleepy score at half. We're all checking our phones, maybe flipping over to this one and seeing Iowa has it close at halftime, and then it ends up being something like 38-10, 38-6. But yeah, I think the path is maybe more Ohio State not firing on all cylinders, or maybe looking ahead to Oregon next week. I think that's the path to cover for Iowa.
A turnover or two, that would be huge.
Sure.
Yeah, Trey, I'm glad you brought up the defense. I think a lot is going to be made about, Will Howard and these guys going against the Iowa defense, but this Ohio State defense, I think, is ready to clamp down. I've been really impressed so far, obviously, with what they've been able to do, and they're ready to kind of clamp down on an offense that is resurgent, kind of, under Iowa, right? It's better than it was last year. It's not historically terrible, but I still don't think they're at that point with their offense. I don't think they have the personnel where they can really, push this and keep up with a team like Ohio State, especially when they have that good of a defense. You combine that with the fact that Will Howard's been really smart, really efficient with the football. We normally say that when you have quarterbacks putting up small stat numbers, it's not really the case for Will Howard. He hasn't been necessarily explosive and dynamic. He did throw for 400 against Western Michigan, but hasn't thrown for 300 yards yet, which I guess for an Ohio State quarterback, we typically expect a little bit more. But I also want to highlight those running backs, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, both averaging more than 8 yards per carry on the season. I really like what they bring into this game. I think they're going to be able to kind of roll. Trey, you were talking about kind of that 38-10 range. I think they could probably cover this at, 28 or, even 31, something like that. I don't think that Iowa's going to be able to score very much on the ground. I don't think they're going to be able to sustain any drives. They'll probably get some opportunities. They might hit a couple big plays. I just don't think they're going to be able to do it all day against Ohio State.
Do you want to shout out Joe, resident Buckeye, because we are finally talking about your team. You're welcome. But you're actually finally playing somebody.
That's very, very
fair. Sorry for not covering Akron and Marshall.
So this game, I think, comes down to what can Caleb Johnson do for Iowa. Currently, he's second in the country in total yards rushing, 685, behind only Ashton Jonty of Boise State. He's averaging 8.35 a tote, which is pretty sick. 171 yards on average per game. Now, that's probably not going to stand up in this one because Ohio State's third in rushing defense. They're giving up 1.84 yards an attempt. Again, Michigan State, Akron, I get it. Still really, really impressive. We'll talk about another really impressive defensive front in Ole Miss coming up here in just a little bit. I'm also curious to see, as a litmus test, how does Will Howard handle pressure? How is he equipped to throw the ball against this secondary with, Trey, as you mentioned, Oregon on deck? A lot of things to take away from this game as teams continue to build their case to be, the upper echelon as we head towards the second half of the season. Final Big Three game of the week. It is the boys from Rutgers traveling to Nebraska, who are 7-point favorites, 3 p.m. on FS1. Guys, Rutgers got out of Dodge last weekend against Washington. It's a Washington team that is favored at home against Michigan, by the way. We'll talk about that in just a second. Rutgers is doing it with defense. They're doing it on the ground. And Athan Kaliakmanis has been better than even I hoped that he would be. He's certainly taken that step forward. He offers enough of a passing element that I think moving on from Gavin Wimsatt ended up working out for Rutgers. Still, though, this is a Nebraska defense that's going to test Rutgers in both phases of the offensive game. And Trey, your concern maybe about Dylan Raiola being able to pick apart this Rutgers secondary.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, Rutgers hasn't had the best outcomes. I think that all in all, Nebraska just has a lot of the keys that I look for on who to pick in this one. I'm going to take Nebraska to cover the 7 points. You can boo me all you want. I'll spoil y'all's picks. You can thank me for saving your graphic on this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Nebraska has a better quarterback in Dylan Raiola, the better defense, in my opinion. It's maybe up for debate at this point in the year, but I think better defense at home. I think I lean Nebraska to get it done. Rutgers hasn't been the sexiest 4-0 start that we've ever seen. They only had a 3.3% chance in post-game win expectancy last week, but it is a good old nerd fight. I will say that. My two favorite stats bros, Parker Gilliam and Bill Connolly with the S&P Plus, they completely disagree on who's going to win this game. Parker has Rutgers by about 2.5. Bill C has Nebraska by 6.5. So play it on the field. Don't play it on paper, but I'm going to lean with Bill C's model and go with Nebraska.
Yeah, Trey, kind of to your point about, Rutgers not necessarily having the best outcomes. I don't know if you guys saw that. Did we really get beat that bad graphic? That's one of my favorites every single week, just to kind of see the disparity between the two teams and how they played and their net efficiency. Rutgers was the worst by far last week in their win over Washington. So not exactly, a fantastic one. The vibes are high over for Rutgers, and I am going to take them to cover this game, though I do think Nebraska should win. This is kind of I don't think Rutgers is quite as good as 4-0. I do like the team. I do think they're doing a lot of things right, and you do have to give them some credit for finding ways to win football games, right? It's not always about just the efficiency or how good it looks. Sometimes it is just getting it done. But I do think overall this Nebraska team is better, and I think they kind of need it more at this point. They had the loss to Illinois, kind of a massive emotional letdown. Then they came out last week and didn't score anything in that first half against Purdue. And, they did pull away in the fourth quarter, but really just not a very impressive game last week against Purdue. I think that they got to get some stuff right before they go and play Ohio State. I think they're going to come out here somewhat motivated and somewhat desperate, but I do think Rutgers can kind of slow this thing down, keep this thing on the ground, maybe force a couple of mistakes and keep it close. Nebraska is going to win the football game, but I think Rutgers is going to find a way to, kind of cover that 7, maybe lose by 6 or something like that.
Ooh, I'll say not so fast, my friend. I'm not sold that Rutgers doesn't win this game on the road. Now, do I think that there's some juggernaut at 4-0? Of course not. But when I look at what Rutgers does well, I wonder if they can take that on the road and get a win against a Nebraska team that has started to look a little human, a little Matt Rule-esque. After all, he's a great program builder, but gosh darn it, guys, in close games, Matt Rule, as of late, does not win the football game. We have seen that time and time again. So what I look at in this game are two items. Number one, the Huskers passing attack versus that Rutgers secondary. Rutgers is 36th pass defense overall. Nebraska has what is statistically an average passing offense at 44th. Now, on the ground, Rutgers has taken all the headlines by what they do with Kyle Monagai, who's one of the top 5 rushers in the country. The team is the top 12 rushing unit overall, 5.3 or 5.4, in attempt, 237 yards on the ground per game. For the Huskers, though, they've done a great job at stopping the run. Their front 7 is 15th overall in rush defense, and they're allowing less than 3 yards a carry. Something's got to give there. So far, though, betting against Kyle Monagai has not been the best financial advice. So I'm going to take Rutgers to keep this close. I would love to say that they're going to win this one outright. I won't be shocked if they do. I'm going to take, Nebraska to win this game by a field goal, but Rutgers to cover. I don't think that this is a step back for Rutgers whatsoever. You go on the road, you prove yourself in a difficult environment. We keep rolling. I think 9 wins maybe is on the horizon for this Scarlet Knights team. So really, really excited about that. That will round out our 3-Tech Big 3. Let us know which side you're picking, YouTube, in the comments on Instagram and on Twitter as well. We'd love to have that conversation with you. Let's move over to the Saturday storylines, gentlemen, presented by Baller Pickleball. A little late on this Wednesday night. Game day visiting Berkeley for the first time ever this weekend. I think now we're down to 4 schools. Is that right? That College Game Day has yet to visit. Berkeley was the 5th. And I'll be honest, I'm glad that Cal is finally getting a visit out there. It feels like they've been forgotten for far too long.
I'm not going to fact check you on that. I trust you.
I think it's
4. I have no idea. Are we including like all the G5s and like all of that too? Because I can't imagine they've been to all the other
four
G5s.
FBS teams.
Oh wow!
If I got the number right, so Miami's -10 on the number for this one. Which way are you guys leaning?
I think that Miami needs this as a bounce back. The Calgorithm was fun, right? We had fun with the Calgorithm, and they certainly warmed our hearts and won a bunch of us over as kind of fans. And as much as I want to go with my heart in this one, Miami needs this so bad. I think they realized they were lucky to escape. And all it took was a little bit more concentration, and they, end up, catching the ball in the end zone. And they lose to Virginia Tech. I think they need this. I think they're going to cover this number, bounce back. Give me the U to roll in this one. I like Cal. I don't think they are as good of a team as maybe we necessarily thought they were. They can definitely jump up and bite a guy on any given week, but I don't think that they're going to do it this week. It's going to be Miami focused, ready to bounce back, and I think the Hurricanes get a big win here.
So you're telling me, Garrett, that Mario Cristobal will have his team focused when they have to travel across 3 time zones, play at a game that kicks off at 10:30 p.m. body clock time, and it's in Berkeley, California, of all places.
I want to talk more about Cam Ward and less about Mario Cristobal. I don't really want to talk about that guy. I know that he's the coach. I know that. Just I don't want to talk about him right now.
Give me Cal on the points, y'all. It's going to get weird out in Berkeley. I'm betting on weirdness more than I'm betting on the Cal Golden Bears football team, and I think that's a safe bet when you include all the added actors into this game.
Sure.
It's a better defense than people give Cal credit for. Again, we saw
They
that
should have
again.
beat Florida State. They had that
They should
game, and they should have buried Florida State. They did not, but should have.
Maybe is the moment too big for Cal as they host game day? I don't know. I did fact check myself. It's six teams that are left in the Power Four because SMU moved up. So the list is Maryland, Rutgers, Virginia, Syracuse, Illinois, and SMU. I am shocked that they've never been to the Dome up in Syracuse. Right. And
College didn't get Juice Williams when he was at Illinois too.
At Illinois, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And in Maryland, I mean, College Park's a great venue. So
yeah, because when you said FBS teams, I'm like, so you telling me they've been out to like Fresno State and like Akron and Buffalo, but they've never been to Cal or something? It felt weird to say that they might have been to all the FBS schools except for just a couple.
SMU was part of a famous game day moment when they played at Houston and Lee Corso dropped an F-bomb.
You are correct.
So,
right.
You are
SMU
correct.
was involved in that game.
Oh God, one of the all-time greats. I think I'm going to take Cal on the points as well. I think, there's a lot going on in this one. Game day being there will be fun. I think that the Bears have done a good job of building a program this year. That defense is a whole lot better than what folks were expecting coming into the season. So I'll roll with Cal plus 10. I'll feel pretty good about that. Stay out west. We've got fireworks on tap in Tucson as Texas Tech and Arizona get ready to play. Arizona beat Utah somewhat handedly last week in Salt Lake City. Texas Tech needed a missed field goal at the end of regulation to beat Cincinnati at home. I think points are going to be in all kinds of common supply here. The question is, which defense is going to get more stops? Guys, I tend to lean Arizona here minus the 6 points. I've just seen more from the Wildcats defense than I have from the Red Raiders. And while I think Texas Tech is a whole lot of fun, maybe even more fun on par than Arizona is just from a pure chaos standpoint, I don't know that they're going to be able to defend Tetro McMillan, Noah Fafita in that running game.
Yeah, I usually take the points when I'm expecting a ton of points to be scored. That's one of my typical mantras in picking a game, but I'm leaning Arizona here. I think they are the decidedly better defense. Neither defense is elite. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but I think Arizona's decidedly better defense. They're at home, and I think T-Mac's going to be able to name his yardage, unfortunately, against this Texas Tech secondary. I don't see them having a lot of answers for him. And it might just be a situation where one guy takes over and covers the game by himself. So I'm going to take Arizona at home.
Yeah, Tetrell McMillan might catch 500 yards and like 7 touchdowns in this game. It might just be one of the most absurd things we've ever seen on a football field. I am going to cautiously jump back in on the Tech bandwagon, not because I really believe that this team can accomplish anything in the Big 12 or like, really push for the conference or anything like that. But I do think that I believe in their offense, and I think their offense is really hitting its stride. And anytime you can score points, you're going to be able to get in shootouts with teams. And I think that's going to help you. Right now, Baron Morton's got 14 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, and I think that's just going to get it done. Don't necessarily know if Tech wins this game, but I do think they'll keep it close, and this will be one of those kind of old-fashioned Big 12 games where, it's the team who touches the ball last is going to win by 3 or 4 or something like that. So, give me whoever touches the ball last, but only by a few points.
What time does this game start? Do y'all know?
That's
10 p.m. Central Time.
Okay.
We'll have fun on the live
It is
show.
the last game. We're gonna have to be watching this as we're recording the live show.
We're going to be screaming and reacting at stuff on this live show. You're going to be like, yes, so anyways, this happened in this game. Oh, there he goes.
Yeah, the Red Raider faithful loved. I just posted a pot of brewing coffee under the Texas Tech game announcement for this, and the Red Raider fans were definitely in agreement. It's going to be a late night on Saturday. Maybe head to the second or third service for church on Sunday. We're going to be catching up on some sleep, I think. Texas Tech 16th in scoring, by the way, over 41 points per game. So Tucson's
every single one of them every week.
They will. Tucson's a weird place to play. We've seen it time and time again. Typically, though, it's when a road team is favored and they go to die in Tucson. Arizona being the favorite here. I don't know. Maybe the vibes are a little bit different. I do still like Arizona in this one. All right, let's talk top 12 teams that are on the road, guys. There's 3 that stick out to me. There's number 4, Tennessee, on the road at Arkansas. Number 10, Michigan, on the road at Washington. They're a road dog against the Huskies. And number 11, USC, is on the road at Minnesota. Which top 12 team is in the most danger on the road this weekend?
No. My answer is just no. I don't think any of these teams should be playing any sort of game here. I love the prompt because, you want to think, well, you're going on the road, anything can happen any given Saturday. And obviously that means that all these teams are going to drop games now because I'm saying it, but none of these games should be remotely close in my mind. I think definitively Tennessee should smoke Arkansas. Arkansas, we kind of saw what A&M did to them with that defense. Tennessee's defense is better than A&M's defense. And Nico and those boys can get it done for Tennessee. So they should win that game by a whole bunch. Michigan, very physical on the defensive side. Washington, not really impressed with what they got. Couldn't beat Rutgers with their running game. I'm not going to take them to beat Michigan with their running game. And then USC against Minnesota. Minnesota doesn't really have much of a pulse. I don't really love what Minnesota's doing right now. USC, obviously a little bit of a slip up there with Michigan, but still a great offense. None of these teams should struggle in these games. If you made me pick, I guess I'm going to say Tennessee just because I think Arkansas is super desperate. And, I think this puts them in a weird spot where they have to kind of win one that, now that they've dropped the A&M game, if they want to make a bowl, they got to find a way to play above themselves. Tennessee coming off a bye, maybe a little bit slow, sleepy. Maybe they come out there and, never punt or something like that. I don't know. But it's going to take something weird like that. And I think Arkansas has that in them. My answer is still just no. I don't think any of these teams should be in any real danger.
I'm going to go with Michigan. It's a low-hanging fruit because Washington is the favorite at home. It's a rematch of the national championship game last year. People have already forgotten that. Not a lot of key players involved on the Washington side from last year that are still there, but there is a little bit of a grudge match element for this one, I guess. But Washington hasn't been bad. I know they're, 3-2 at this point. Will Rogers has put up a lot of nice numbers. It hasn't been his fault that they're 3-2. They've lost a couple close games, neutral site in Seattle, a rivalry game, and going all the way across the country to play Rutgers last week. And you look at the stats, they should have won that game. I mentioned it earlier for Rutgers. It was like 3.5% post-game win expectancy. So I think Washington's going to get somebody this year. And if Michigan, I know, has not figured out their passing game. So if Washington is able to shut down the run and commit enough bodies to the run and stop it, then Alex Orty's not going to beat them through the air. So they have a really good chance as long as their offense can execute.
Yeah, Washington is one of the top overall defenses in preventing points being put on the board. I believe they're 10th in total defense. The rush defense is more middle of the pack, which is obviously the matchup that probably matters the most. But where the math really likes Washington to keep this one close, maybe even win it outright, is just overall efficiency. Michigan is one of the most inefficient offenses, one of the most inefficient teams in the entire country. They stink on third and fourth down. Alex Orji obviously can't pass the ball. So if they're not able to run it, then they've really got nothing else going on. I wonder if this game on the road is a true trap situation for Michigan. We've got everything going their way. They beat USC. They silenced the doubters. They're inside the top 10 again. People are making headlines saying, you know what? Actually, this Michigan team can make the playoffs. I wonder if it's time to pay the piper just a little bit. Washington has certainly been better than that result would indicate. The offense, Trey, as you mentioned, it's not Will Rogers' fault. The offense has actually been clicking. They're inside the top 30 in a lot of metrics. Their Eccles rating is for sure well above Michigan's, and their projected points in this one between 21 and 24. I think if you told me Washington could score 24 points against Michigan, I think they'd have a really good chance of winning this one outright, just because I don't know if I'm going to see Michigan score in the 30s all that often this season. So I'll take Washington minus the 2.5. Give me the home team by a field goal. I think that they could certainly get this done. Minnesota, I just don't know that they've got enough pop to get rid of USC at home. I know it's at home. I know Minnesota's defense has been statistically the best against the pass, but the way USC roared to life last week against Wisconsin, when I was getting ready, all kinds of tweets to say, see, they're the USC that we thought they were, and then they fought back, and then they showed a little bit of a backbone. I just don't like betting on Minnesota right now.
Yeah, and I think USC, I'm glad you used the word backbone, because I think the second half of that Michigan game, second half of the Wisconsin game, it seems like if you're going to beat them, you got to run for all your yards in the first half. And if Minnesota's able to do that, run away and hide in this one, then they're going to have a really good chance of winning the game. But I think I too have been really impressed with USC's ability to make halftime adjustments, bow up and stop the run in the second half. And it's almost got them to come back against Michigan, and it certainly separated them from Wisconsin last week. So haven't seen enough from Minnesota. I know they had the big comeback last week too. They probably should have gotten a chance to win that game on the last drive if you look at what's come out about the onside kick. But just too little too late, and kind of a situation where Michigan had lulled to sleep a little bit. So haven't seen enough from Minnesota to have a lot of confidence in them.
Big Ten amended that rule, by the way, this week, saying that coaches can challenge the result of an offsides call on the onside kick. If you have
adjusted their positioning, right? Like they adjusted where they're going to actually put officials on the field as a result of that.
Yep. If you have no idea what we're talking about, Minnesota recovered an onside kick after scoring a touchdown that got them to just trailing by 3.
Yeah.
They recovered it. The official was out of position, but called Minnesota offsides. The replay showed nobody was offsides. It was a perfectly legal kick, and that the officials cost the Gophers that ball game. All right. Battle for third in the ACC. Guys, this is a fascinating game to me that I feel like is flying under the radar on a lot of national circuits, even amidst a week where we don't have a lot of ranked-on-ranked matchups, because Louisville lost last week to Notre Dame in the way that they did, in Florida State, maybe one of the worst programs in the country this season. No one seems to be talking about SMU going on the road to take on the Cardinals. Louisville is 7-point favorite. The over-under in this one, in case you're interested in offense, 57.5. Do you guys have a leaning between the Stangs and the Cards?
So SMU's getting 7 points in this game. I'm going to take those 7 points because I do think they can put up enough to keep that competitive. I also think SMU's going to find a way to win this game. I think we've kind of overreacted a little bit to that BYU loss. I understand it didn't look good at the time, but BYU's turned out to be a pretty dang good defense, and I don't think we are giving them quite enough credit for that. I was not impressed. I don't think any of us were impressed with Louisville last week against Notre Dame. really concerned about turnovers in the big spot right now for Louisville. I'm going to need to see them clean that up, and a little concerned about that going into this one. I think SMU is going to be aggressive in this one. I think the defense for SMU is better than what it's played to so far. I think they can be a lot better. And I think that this is a chance for them to kind of pin their ears back, be aggressive, try to force some mistakes. I think if SMU can take a lead in this game, it puts Louisville in a bad position trying to kind of push and force the issue downfield. So I think this game has the potential to spiral if Louisville gets in the hole early. And I think that SMU is going to be able to kind of keep pace with them. So I'm going to take the Ponies to find a way to win against Louisville here. I think this is a big spot for them, kind of for pole position, like you were saying, in the ACC.
I will say I'm impressed with Louisville's ability to keep that game close last week when literally everything went wrong. They fumbled a snap. They gave Notre Dame multiple short fields, handed them – I did the math on the live show. I think it was either 14 or 17 points. And they still kept it close in a sloppy game. But I think the biggest advantage they have is that front seven against – the SMU offensive line. I'm still not sold on the SMU offensive line. We saw it with our own eyes. Mitch saw it with his own eyes last week. Even there were times against Florida State, who has been much maligned, that they still struggled a little bit to project Kevin Jennings. I will say SMU looks like a much better team with Kevin Jennings running the show, but I think they might just be a little step away from Louisville's quality at this point. I'm going to take maybe a little more experience at quarterback at home too, and Tyler Shuck. Louisville covers this late.
I still stand behind the analysis that led me to pick Louisville over Notre Dame last week. If they don't hand the Irish all of those 3 points, I think that they win that game by 10. I triple locked it up last week in a friend's pick'em contest because I was so confident about it. So I'm going to take Louisville minus the points here. We keep saying that the SMU offense looks better with Kevin Jennings, and that's true. There is no doubt that Kevin Jennings has unlocked that offense. The Iron Skillet game went as well as it possibly could have. They demolished FSU. The problem is that offensive line. It looks dynamic with Kevin Jennings because he might be the only quarterback on that roster who can navigate a cloudy pocket, step up, make throws on the run, or even do it with his legs. That offensive line has just been Swiss cheese this season. And because I will stand on the analysis that I had last week, that Louisville's front seven is tenacious, they're fast, and they're physical, I expected them to get after Notre Dame. I really expect them to get after SMU on the road this week. I think the Mustangs are a very good program. I think they're headed in the right direction. They're doing a lot of good things. Going on the road, though, and beating a top 25 opponent, I don't know if they're ready to do that quite yet. So I'll take the Cards minus the points. If I was inclined to go over or under in this one, guys, I'll be honest, I think the over relies on SMU being able to score 20-plus points. I wonder if Louisville locks them up this week. So I would stay away from it, but if I had to pick one or the other, I might be inclined to go on the under this week. Yeah, not financial advice. Go ahead and throw that up. Yes or no? Could Pitt force Mac Brown into retirement this week with a loss at Chapel Hill?
I mean, he's got to collect a check the rest of the year, right? Like, why would he retire in the middle of the season and forfeit that money?
He said he was going to hang him up after they got their drum beat by JMU.
He says a lot of things.
I just don't know what else he needs to prove at this point. He's had a fantastic career. He's one of the best to do it. He's got money. He doesn't need money. Pitt could win this game. Pitt could lose this game. Doesn't really matter. Mac should just retire anyways. Go sit on a beach somewhere and sip on a drink with a umbrella in it, and just enjoy the success of your career and the fruits of what it's earned you. I understand there's that competitor in there that wants to keep fighting, but come on, man. Like it's okay. We've got it from here.
Come on, man. I as a Pitt, one of the original Pitt backers on this show this year. Just want to shout out my guys and say that the offense is super fun. And I think that they will give North Carolina a ton of problems because North Carolina has not shown that they can stop good offenses. So I don't know, maybe Mac Brown just gives up at halftime because he gives up 59 points or whatever it was again in the first half.
Pitt's offense might do some terrible things to this North Carolina defense. Desmond Reed is one of the most efficient runners out of the backfield, but he's also a great pass catcher. And, Eli Holstein has grown up before our eyes. He's done an excellent job this season. When we previewed Pitt, we weren't really considering Holstein to be the quarterback. This was supposed to be Nate Yarnell's show. He was the incumbent from last year. He was the veteran. Surely he wasn't going to lose to a transfer freshman. And yet that's exactly what happened. And Eli Holstein has won over this fan base. He's won over this team. I like Pitt, and I like Pitt big. Until North Carolina can show me something, I think this is a rapidly declining program at Chapel Hill. They need to go in a new direction as quickly as possible. I mean, I said this, I don't remember if I said this on a podcast or if I was just shooting the breeze. If you are committed to North Carolina right now as a recruit, why? What is holding you there other than just the love for the school itself? Because, the head man's not going to be there. Maybe a lot of that coaching staff probably is not going to be there. You don't know what the transfer portal is going to do to North Carolina. This isn't the first time that they've been victimized by it so far. So, unless you just bleed Tar Heel blue, which awesome. If Carolina blue runs in your veins, congratulations. Stay true. Go play for your school, man. If not, though, if you've got other options, I'd be telling Haynes Fawcett to get a decommit graphic ready because it's time to move on. It's time to move on from
maybe like the Jordan gear. Maybe like whatever NIL package.
Go play for Oklahoma or Florida. You can wear the same stuff. Or Michigan. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I hear Michigan could use some recruits this time of year too. Guys, it is time to pay attention to Service Academy football. Both Navy and Army, as we salute the troops, are off to 4-0 starts for the first time since we won World War II in 1945. It's been a minute for the service academies. You've got Navy and Air Force playing the first leg of the Commander-in-Chief Trophy this week. Navy is averaging 38 points a game. How about that? The midshipmen running loose all over opposing defenses. Army and Tulsa are the other side of this. Army hasn't allowed more than 14 points in a game this season. Guys, I'll be honest, I don't see that changing with Tulsa. I'm fully inclined to say that both Army and Navy start out 5-0. And you know what? It started out as a bit, but Army and Navy as not only conference champions, but maybe playoff contenders is looking like a very real discussion that we will continue to have.
Yeah, we need to have the discussion because they're some of the most efficient teams in college football too. And I would love to see an option team play on the road in a college football playoff environment. Like, of all the things, like, you're locked in that 5 seed. Everybody's talked about how it's such a great spot. You have the flex bone coming into your grill on week 1 of the playoffs. Like, come on, like, who doesn't want that? Root for America, root for this to happen. I think both of these teams pick up another win. I will say, I think typically you got to bet the underdog and bet the under when two service academies are playing each other. So I will take Air Force in the points. I don't have that spread in front of me, but it looks like it's a 10-point spread. So, yeah, give me Air Force in the points there. But, I think they keep on rolling and set up that collision course, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm with y'all. Army and Navy both going to keep rolling. But, Mitch, come on, man. These are trying times we're living through. Why are you bringing up world wars on the podcast? What are we doing here, man? I'm just a little concerned. It feels like a bad omen now.
Listen, Hitler is dead and Army and Navy are 5-0. That was the headline back in 45. I'm just the messenger. That's all I am. Don't shoot the messenger. Also, just a closing note: Air Force wearing some sick uniforms against
those helmets.
Yeah. So another good reason to take Air Force plus the points. Guys, let's go down to the South, where I ask, what DEFCON level will Auburn be at after this game between the Hedges? The Georgia Bulldogs are angry, they're pissed off, and they have a loss against a non-Nick Saban Alabama team. Feels like a lot of demons might get exercised against an Auburn team that just continues to shoot themselves in the foot, whether it be turnovers, whether it be late game management. I think the Bulldogs roll, and I think the Bulldogs roll big in this one.
Yeah, Georgia is going to win this game. They're going to win it by a bunch. It's revenge time. It's time to, right the ship after the loss to Alabama. We get it, all that. I don't think at Auburn this is quite hot seat time for Hugh Freeze, but it is going to kind of point out, I think some of the good graces are leaving with Hugh Freeze right now. Starting to wear thin at the very least. They're not, out on him completely as a fan base, I don't think, but man, you get smoked by Georgia in this one or just kind of fail to show up. It's going to make a lot of fans pretty restless and upset. And at the very least, they're going to be really, really antsy about this offseason and what kind of changes they're going to be making. Now, pause, hit it, reverse it. After I wrote this note, Deuce Knight flipped his commitment from Notre Dame to Auburn, and that is a massive, massive deal for Auburn. If they can hang on to that, that will be a QB1 for a otherwise very talented roster next year for Auburn. So I do think that Auburn can still right the ship. Maybe not this year. It might be a little bit too late for this year to figure it out. I don't think they really have a quarterback on their roster, so it's just going to kind of be who can take care of it the best and, not throw 3 picks to Arkansas or something like that. But next year, I think, is where the Auburn fans are really going to set their expectations. Hugh Freeze can't get away with this next year. So not hot seat, but I think definitely, the good graces wearing thin, as I think the way I would describe this.
Yeah, I don't know what DEF CON they're going to be at, if this is going to really affect that, right? Because they can't, even the most irrational of Auburn fans can't be expecting them to win this game.
There's no way.
They've lost 7 in a row in this series dating back to 2017. I know they played them close in Auburn last year, 27-20, but you can't be expecting them to win this game if you're an Auburn fan. Georgia's going to win this game.
Well, I don't think it's – I mean, listen, I don't think it's –
I know you want to beat your rival, and it's a Deep South Syllabus rivalry, but come on.
Well, but I think my question at least is what kind of crazy takes do we see if Georgia wins this game by 35, right? Like because the roster is not going to be it's tough to project what the transfer portal is going to do, but the roster is not going to be like night and day better next season. Will you have a quarterback on the roster in Deuce Knight? Sure. Should you also go get multiple transfer portal quarterbacks? Also, yes. Yeah. I think that's the biggest part that's missing to this Auburn machine. At the same time, though, like you've got to see guys step up and be competitive. If Hugh Freeze's proof of concept, which he's been architecting over the last 2 years, is that we're going to be able to compete with Alabama, with Georgia. Yeah. The problem is I just don't see how they reach that extra gear without a reliable offense, without Jarquez Hunter running for 250 yards against Georgia. I don't know how Auburn's going to keep track with a Bulldog team that really is going to want to flex some muscle, especially when they've got one of the toughest schedules in the country still in front of them.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm thinking with this is it really depends on the nature in which they lose this game. If they play this game close, maybe lose by like 10, 14, something like that, I think a lot of Auburn fans will feel okay about it. You're not going to be happy about a loss. Nobody's going to be happy about a loss. You always want to watch a team win, but I think that's more understandable than like what you were saying if they lose by 35 or something like that. Now, I think it's a lot more likely that they lose by 35 than keep it close. But I do think it depends on the nature in which Auburn loses this game. The War Eagle faithful, I don't think they expect to win it, but they want to see a better product on the field, right? They want to stop seeing the complete ineptitude at quarterback, the complete just kind of giving up and not seeing the good results that they think that they should have. And certainly the roster is fine. Like, it's not like it's a non-talented roster. They have good players across this roster. They got good young players on this roster too that could develop. It's just really about, kind of what they're doing and looking forward, I think, to next year. And, maybe you play this one close and you have a little bit of hope for the rest of the season. Maybe jump up, grab a couple games that right now you don't think you should probably win, but you play Georgia close enough and you have a little bit of hope. You just got to get a little bit of hope coming out of this one, and losing by, like what you said, Mitch, 30, 35, something like that. That ain't going to do it.
No, which side of the line are you guys on here? It's 24 points.
I wouldn't touch it. I think if I had to, though, I'll take Georgia.
I would flip just the slight other direction. I think they probably lose this one by like 3 touchdowns. I think they keep it around 3 touchdowns. So just barely covering for Auburn. I could see it be like a late situation where it's just, there's some subs in and they're playing for pride, something like that. And, I could see it be that. I don't really know. I'm not super plugged in with, all the Auburn stuff, but I do think that's kind of where they would land for me.
Auburn has Georgia in the points personally, but yeah.
I've got a feeling about that. Auburn hasn't kept it inside of 14 points, so a competitive ball game between the hedges since 2016. They did beat Georgia pretty handily in 2017 in Atlanta, Trey, as you kind of alluded to earlier. But yeah, I think this is a big day for Athens PD, not exactly for War Eagle. Let's go turbo offense here to finish out the show. Put up or shut up time in Columbia for the Gamecocks and Ole Miss. We watched Ole Miss fall to Kentucky last week. They're favored by 9.5 as they head up to South Carolina to take on Beamer Ball. Guys, what stands out to you as the X factor in this game? I think there's a couple of ways this could go. All of them have me leaning Ole Miss and the points.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be the health of Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders. Like those guys a little banged up, questionable. I think I saw some reports that they were practicing and maybe getting back. That great if they can. If they're playing this one healthy enough and can go, then I think South Carolina keeps it close, maybe can push to win. Otherwise, the Rebels need a rebound so bad. They need to bounce back after that. They're, tired of getting made fun of for losing to Kentucky, and it's still a good Kentucky team, but they're tired of getting, made fun of for that. They've been kind of the joke of college football this last week with some of their, embarrassing loss to Kentucky. So I think they really want to rebound on this one. South Carolina can keep it close with their top guys. They can run the football. They can slow it down. It depends on how healthy they are and how they can, kind of stay on the field and affect the game.
For me, it's can Ole Miss stay on the field on offense and get off the field on defense? And that's simple football, but it's what got them beat last week. 1 of 10 on third downs. Let Kentucky convert some big third and fourth downs in big moments. So can they stay composed in a hostile environment, get off the field on defense, stay on the field on offense? If they can, they're going to win this one going away. If they can't, they're going to be going home with another loss.
What really hurt Ole Miss last week was that Kentucky pass rush got to Jackson Dart. Lane and that Ole Miss team had been riding a lot of deep routes to success early on in the season, but those routes weren't able to establish when Kentucky was able to get pressure in the face. So from what I've seen, Ole Miss is expected to deploy a lot more short stuff, a lot more underneath routes, slants, out routes, etc. Get the ball out of Jackson Dart's hands. On the other hand, South Carolina needs to be able to run this football in order to stay in the game, right? Ole Miss doesn't let you run the football. They are first in rush defense, 1.35 yards per attempt. I know they've played a bunch of nobodies before Kentucky, but even still, this front four is one of the most talented front fours in the entire country. I need to see somebody run on them and establish the run before I'm going to say that stat is overblown. To me, South Carolina's bread and butter, their identity on offense is through the ground game. Until I can see that they can establish that run, I'm gonna roll with Ole Miss here. I just feel like we were saying that Ole Miss was one of the top, 5 to 6 teams in the country that they were already reserving a spot in the playoffs pretty much, and then they have this hiccup against Kentucky. As much as I want to say, very similarly to USC, that it's the same old program, that it's the same old Lane Kiffin, I think they get a bounce back win here. So I think Ole Miss, maybe by 14 this week is the play. The cockpit's a tough place to play. We saw that against LSU, but all of those advantages, the turnovers, everything that should have handed South Carolina a win against the Tigers team that I don't think is nearly as good as this Ole Miss team, and they still couldn't get it done. So I'll take the game. I'll take Ole Miss.
Quick little note on this. I did look it up on the injury report for the week, and Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders both questionable. And it seems like a lot of the fan base that I'm seeing is, maybe a little bit doubtful that either of them end up playing in this one. There's a guy that was talking about, let me see if I can go find that tweet. Guy says, if Lenora Sellers is out for this Saturday, I'm putting it on record to never trust this staff again. So there seems to be some distrust with the staff and the questionable listings there.
Not shoving things up places or making any bets.
Correct.
And then posting them.
Correct.
Come on.
Yeah, at least put a content warning on that first picture or something. That's aggressive. I saw that too many times just popping up on my feed. So that was unfortunate. I do think that if Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders can play this game, this will be closer. Like I think that South Carolina can cover this and keep this one fairly close, especially if Ole Miss is going to go a little bit more dink and dunk. that they should be able to keep this one closer in a little bit of a slowed down game. I don't see a way that Ole Miss drops this game in back-to-back weeks.
The Ole Miss injury report is like the entire roster long. Everybody's probable or questionable. So a lot of injuries on the Ole Miss front. We'll see what of that is real and what of that is just devastating fake injuries that we saw last week. Indiana seeking bowl eligibility already, guys. For the first time since 2021, Indiana could go 6-0 with a win at Northwestern. They're 14-point favorites on the banks of the Chicago. Is it not? Which lake?
Michigan.
Lake Michigan. That's right.
Yeah.
Hottest start for the Hoosiers since 1967. And it's the first time, guys, that they've beaten their first 5 opponents by double digits since 1904. Jimmy Carter was around to see that. Or was he? I guess.
No.
Not quite. Almost, but not quite. Still.
Do you see that picture of him out by he might have been there. I'm not sure. I believe 100 after that picture of him
100. He looks.
I know they say 100. He looks like he's about 200 though. So I don't know that I buy that.
Trey, I assume you're on the Hoosiers this week.
I'm on the Hoosiers to win the game. 14 points in a weird environment right there on the lake in a weird stadium scares the crap out of me to actually bet that spread, but I think they'll get the win done. Was a little worried about a look ahead spot, but they have a bye week next week before they go to Nebraska. Or host Nebraska, I should say. So
Trey,
roll Hoos, baby.
Trey, I am right there with you. I'm on the bandwagon. You saved me the spot. I appreciate you. We're riding together now. Who's your daddy? Indiana -90. Don't even care.
Roll Hoos all the way to the playoff, baby.
Yeah, I think if you forced me to take a side in this, I would take Northwestern plus the points, but Indiana's 6-0 under Kurt Cignetti. It'll be a fun Saturday night, I think, for Indiana fans.
Mitch, don't kill my vibe. Come on.
Finally, should Alabama be on letdown watch at Vandy? Bama 23-point favorites. Guys, does anybody know how many games that Bama has beaten Vandy in a row? It's a lot.
They can sprint to Wikipedia real quick. I'm going to guess it's at least 20.
23 times Alabama has beaten Vanderbilt. The last loss for the Crimson Tide at the hands of the Commodores in football, at least, came in 1984.
Jimmy Carter was around for that.
Jimmy Carter was around for that.
He wasn't in the White House anymore, but he was around for that one.
No doubt about that. I don't think the streak is in jeopardy, but then again, guys, Diego Pavia ball, it's chaotic, it's fun. Is there any chance that we're talking about the Commodores to lead off the live show on Saturday night?
Nah.
I mean, if you want to lead them off with them, we can. Absolutely. I feel like this is an unsafe bet to bet against the host of the show that determines the show doc order. But
it's fair.
You want to talk about Bama winning by 50?
Yeah, I mean, Vandy's plucky. I think they can keep it close, and they kept it extremely close against Mizzou and beat Virginia Tech at home. So there's a path to keeping it close, but I don't see a path to victory.
Yeah, I think we need to just pause and learn the lesson from last week. Bama is still Bama. They've been Bama. They didn't stop being Bama. They're going to stay Bama. The rumors of Bama's demise have been greatly overblown. They've been greatly exaggerated. There's no chance that Bama's going to go away anytime. Vandy's been fun. It's been fun to watch them, and kept it close. Missouri, that's fun. Roll Tide. It's going to be a big day for Bama. They're back on it, and I do think that this is going to help launch that Jalen Milroe Heisman campaign. I know that obviously last week kind of got some of that started. He's looked pretty good, but it's time to use a game like this to pad the stats and start looking better on those graphics when it comes to the end of the season.
How close do they have to keep it for SEC shorts to give them their cane back? That's what I want to know. Is it within maybe 2 scores? Is it within 10 points? Like how do they get their cane back?
Maybe just like a Pavia situation where he plays well in the game, and so they have a couple highlight reels things, and so it's kind of a sarcastic walking through the trauma ward with the cane, I'll just see myself to my bed or something. I don't know. It could be something like that.
I did just check real fast on the Heisman odds. Milroe's Heisman campaign, it's it's launched. We're SpaceX in this thing. He's first in Heisman voting.
I figured as much after Cam Ward's kind of stinker there. So it's. I'm not saying that he hasn't gotten it started. I'm just saying those like stats at the end of the season where everyone puts the graphic up in the middle to late November and it's who's going to win the Heisman, and you just compare like yardage and touchdowns and stuff like that. This is one of those games you need to pad your stats in, and I think this is a pad stat game for Jalen Milroe.
Shouldn't matter at the end of it. I think
if
we're being honest, Ashton Jonty should already pretty much have it in the bag. But yeah, let's pad the stats against Vandy this week. Last question for you guys. We had a listener ask us this on Twitter. How do you define a plucky team in 2024?
It's a great question. I don't know that it has an exact answer for me. It's just a fun team that can keep games close, and they're not an elite team by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're inherently not elite if we're calling them plucky, but they either have a really fun offense or a really fun defense and just a knack for keeping games close, especially at home. I think that's how I define it.
Yeah, I would just define it as a team that can get you, right? A team that you fall asleep, you don't come with your A game. It's an 11 a.m. kick. It's a little bit drowsy. You might be on the road. And then here comes this team with a good player or just a good enough, combo of quarterback receivers that they can, put up 14 in that first quarter and make you play from behind the rest of the game, right? A team like that can kind of jump up and get you.
To answer the 2024 aspect of that question, I think it's probably more likely to be a very well-coached team that has older players that have been together for a couple of years. That's typically going to correlate with being plucky.
Okay. There you have it, Trey, calling Iowa plucky in 2020.
That Iowa.
Listen, by your definition,
Trey's saying that Oklahoma State is a plucky team.
Well-coached, older
if you win 10 games in a power conference, you've surpassed plucky, no matter how bad your offense is.
Fair.
I was Iowa. I would
call teams like TCU or SMU, like those teams are plucky. They got good offenses. They can kind of jump up and get. They're not going to win a bunch of games, and SMU might win a couple and more in the ACC than TCU in the Big 12. But they can kind of jump up and get a good team on a bad week.
Yeah. I'd say those are pretty good examples. I'd even go maybe a step further down, like a Texas Tech, like a Cal.
Sure. That's exactly who I thought.
Boston College, we saw them against Florida State. So I'd maybe even go a step below the TCU SMU tier for me personally.
Yeah.
Half teams. Good half teams.
Maybe we'll do like a whole like plucky podcast in the off season. That could be fun.
Maybe
defining weird terms. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get out of here on that. We will see you guys on Saturday night for the live show. Appreciate you hanging out with us today, tonight, whenever you're listening or watching this podcast. We love having the Jimmies and the Joes. Make sure you drop a like on the podcast on YouTube. Give us a rating on Spotify or Apple, and leave us a comment wherever you interact with us at 3Tech Pod on social media. Until Saturday night for the live show, so long, everybody.
Gracious him. How about